Hey Wii U-vians. I am John and I am here with devastating news. Since the last quarter, the Nintendo Switch 2 has sold another 7 million units, placing it at 17.37 million units sold. They call it the fastest selling console ever. I don't know how well you know Wii U numbers, but the Wii U sold 13.56 million. So this console's not even out for a year yet. It has sold 4 million more than the Wii U in its 5-year lifespan. It's like, why do you get out of bed in the morning? I don't know if I can keep that up for an entire video again. So let's just go over the rest of the sales figures, because they're weird, a bit confusing, and kind of cool. So until March, the end of the fiscal year, Nintendo expect to sell an extra 1.63 million Nintendo Switch 2 consoles, despite there not really being a big new software title. In that span, we've got Mario Tennis Fever, and that's it, really. There's other third-party games like Resident Evil, and some big March titles like Pokopia and Monster Hunter Stories 3, but they won't count by the end of that fiscal year. So it's really Mario Tennis and I guess Evergreens driving the extra 1.63 million, but it does seem fairly achievable. And also what's interesting is not only is Switch 2 the fastest selling console ever, but the software is actually higher than it's been since the Wii. The actual software sell-through is really, really healthy right now. And if you look at other healthy sales, Mario Kart World is the fastest selling Mario Kart game, surpassing Mario Kart Wii, far ahead of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Everything is really healthy. And I put all this stuff first because the actual sales figures themselves are odd. If you remember how they count Switch 2 editions, it works a bit like this. So if a game sells a digital Switch 1 copy, that's counted as a Switch 1 sale. If it sells a physical Switch 1 copy, that counts as a Switch 1 sale. If it sells a digital Switch 2 copy, that counts as a Switch 1 sale. And if it sells a physical Switch 2 copy, that counts as a Switch 2 sale. So when it comes to Switch 2 editions, only the physical sales are counted as Switch 2 numbers. And for that reason, Metroid Prime 4 has not been listed as a million seller. Now, of course, there is a chance it just didn't sell a million, but the logical explanation is those Switch 2 physical numbers would have been pretty high, and everything else was counted as a Switch 1 number, which didn't pass a million. So when it comes to Switch 1, the digital Switch 1, the physical Switch 1, and the digital Switch 2, which is counted as Switch 1, all that is not a million. But I would wager that if you were to include Switch 2 physical, that would surpass a million, but then Switch 2 is counted separately. It's a whole confusing ball game, okay? But let's keep going with this with Pokémon Legends Z-A. This has sold 12.3 million copies, but again, the split is odd. So Switch 2 sold 3.89 million, but we know that is only physical sales. Everything else is included as a Switch 1 sale. So that's actually kind of interesting. We don't quite know the digital-physical split because it's all divided between platforms, but along those 12.3 million, 3.89 were physical Switch 2 sales on an install base of 17 million, which is pretty dang high. And I just find that interesting, even though we have no comparison point for what the actual overall digital-physical split is. And we also don't know exactly how many of those copies were done on Switch 1, because Switch 2 digital is included. I don't like how they've done Switch 2 edition sales, man. It really confuses me. We also don't know about upgrade packs. So, we don't know how many people bought the New Horizons upgrade pack or the Mario Party upgrade pack, because upgrade pack numbers just are not reported. Even though it's, for a brand new game or an old game, it won't be reported. Bizarre stuff. We've also got sales for Mario Galaxy 1+2, and I'm also a bit confused by this, because they've counted Mario Galaxy and Mario Galaxy 2 as two different SKUs, and they haven't really specified about whether the physical double pack is included as a sale for each, or if it's discluded entirely, but they have basically sold 2.42 million for Mario Galaxy 2 and 2.28 million for Mario Galaxy 1. And for those who remember Mario 3D All-Stars, that game actually sold really well. That game surpassed Mario Galaxy 2 on the Wii in terms of its actual sales. You know, like in its 1 year on the market, 3D All-Stars did 9 million copies, which is ridiculously good. And that must have eaten into Mario Galaxy if these are the reported digital and physical sales, which I'm still a bit unclear on. But Mario Galaxy 2 was the more interesting game here because it was the new re-release, and it did surpass Mario Galaxy 1 by about 200,000. But I think most people probably bought these together, if this does include the physical copy, which I do not know. Now, Kirby Air Riders is incredibly interesting. So the GameCube original game sold 1.35 million units in its entire lifespan, and Air Riders has already surpassed that at 1.76 million units. And it's also interesting to compare that to the racing game competition right now, because obviously Mario Kart World has sold a heck ton. But Sega have reported that Sonic Racing Cross Worlds has, is underperformed in terms of sales and has done over 1 million. Obviously, we don't know the exact figure, but logically, it sounds like Air Riders has outsold Cross Worlds, which is a game on, it's on PS4, PS5, Xbox Series X, Switch 1, Switch 2, PC. So all those platforms, and one little Kirby Air Riders on just Switch 2 has managed to seemingly surpass it. Obviously, we don't know the raw number for Cross Worlds, but that's pretty dang good. Pretty dang good for Kirby. And the rest of the sales maybe aren't so interesting, because we don't know Metroid Prime 4 sales. We don't know Hyrule Warriors sales. It's hard to say if that game sold well or not. Koei Tecmo didn't report it, and I don't know if Nintendo would, because it's technically not a first-party game. But I'd imagine that game being so similar to Age of Calamity probably cut its legs a little bit, because obviously it's a new story, but it looks very similar from a gameplay perspective. And I think that's the overall draw with a lot of these software numbers, is none of them are particularly high other than Pokemon. But obviously it's the early days of a system, and this was very similar with Switch 1 as well. But I think a lot of people are probably buying into the Switch 2 as a continuation of the Switch 1 as a brand, rather than specifically for these games. Because evergreen games like Donkey Kong Bonanza, they're selling well, but it's not necessarily a huge leap. That sold an extra 760,000 in this quarter, which is good. But for a Christmas period, you'd think that would be the key driver. And it definitely didn't grow like Mario Kart World did. And I think just from a personal perspective, looking at the current software library, it is quite small and spin-off focused right now. I'm not sure if that's changing with games like Splatoon Raiders. But this is still early days of the system. And when those huge evergreen games like Smash Brothers and Mario and all those others come along, we are definitely going to see that spike in number. And there's nothing to worry about. This is the fastest selling console ever. And even if maybe things feel a little bit timid right now, it's not being reflected in sales, and it will probably just continue to grow and grow as things do get more exciting. But yeah, these are pretty good numbers. But let's also look at Switch 1's just general quarter as well, because there's some evergreens in there which are interesting, and people underestimate a few of those. So let's take a quick look at those as well. So for Switch 1 evergreens, Mario Wonder has sold an extra 1.12 million units, Smash Bros. Ultimate 1.2 million units, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet 1.28 million units, Animal Crossing New Horizons 1.5 million units, Switch Sports 1.57 million units, Mario Party Jamboree 1.93 million units, Mario Galaxy, which is a new game, 2.28 million, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe 2.39 million, Mario Galaxy 2 is at 2.42 million, and then the brand new Pokémon Legends Z-A, 8.41 million. It's crazy that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is still selling, but if you pick up a Nintendo Switch, that is logically the game you're probably going to get. And speaking of Nintendo Switch, this is a pretty huge thing, which I probably should have mentioned earlier. It is now the best-selling Nintendo console ever, surpassing Nintendo DS at last. PlayStation 2 is still the best-selling console of all time, but this is the best-selling Nintendo console slash handheld slash whatever. There's still a chance it could surpass PlayStation 2. And I know that there's a commenter out there on every video saying, John, you said if Switch 1 doesn't surpass PS2, you're going to eat a PS2. And I will do that. I will eat a PS2. I'll do that this week, in fact. I'm sorry I've put this off for so long. I will devour a PS2 really soon, I promise to you, this week. This week, we are going to eat a PS2. I still think there's a strong chance the Switch 1 will outsell PS2 in the long run, but I don't think I specified well enough that I meant all time rather than immediately. So yes, I will eat a dang PS2 really soon. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, everybody, and we will catch you next time. Bye-bye.